Well, guys, I'm starting from a little home late, but I'm kind of sick. My tummy hurts, and I'm having reflux. So Miss Angie took me home a little early. Anyways, here's our last chapter. Chapter 10. What are you so happy about? Sammy asked Charles. You keep smiling. Come on, tell me. Charles shook his head. You'll find out. I better, said Sammy, and you owe me a humongous favor for agreeing to let me recite the night before Christmas all by myself. It was Christmas Eve, and the boys were in the back of the van on their way to the nest along with their other friends from the Scout Club. Charles was happy. He had been working hard all week, but it was worth it. He had solved two big problems. One, how to find a home for a puppy and kitten that could not be separated. And two, how to find a poem he could memorize for tonight's showcase. The second problem was the easiest. Charles figured that he wrote his own poem, he wouldn't have to have such a hard time remembering it. He wouldn't even have to figure out the form of a poem. He just used the night before Christmas as a motto. No, but changed the words the same way the Cub Scouts changed words of familiar songs like It's a Small World. Charles thought the poem had turned out pretty well. Maybe someday he would be a writer like his mother. He would have had to teach the poem to Sammy, but he only finished it the night before. Anyways, that would ruin the surprise. Which everyone had to do with problem one. Charles wanted everybody to be surprised, including his own family, the families at the nest, and all the scouts. Well, there was one person who was in on the surprise, but that person wasn't telling either. The Pearsons' band pulled up at the nest at the same time. Lizzie, Mom, and the Bean arrived with Max and Maggie. The scouts piled out of the van, excited to be at the nest on Christmas Eve. Charles went over to help his mom and ended up carrying Max in the front walk while Lizzie walked Maggie over. The door swung open before Dad could even ring the bell. "They're here!" shouted Eben. "Merry Christmas, Max! Merry Christmas, Maggie! Merry Christmas, Charles! Merry Christmas, Charles' family!" Behind him, Mr. Baker laughed. "And Merry Christmas to all our little scout friends, too," he said. "We really enjoyed having you boys come here every week. Come on in, come on in." The nest was warm and bright, with Christmas lights that draped all around the front desk and led down the hall. It smelled good, too, like turkey and stuffing. Charles took a big sniff. "Apple pie?" he asked Mr. Baker. "You bet," he said. "I made it myself." Mr. Baker patted Charles on the shoulder. "How about if you and I get Max and Maggie settled in the rec room? Lizzie, we could sure use your help in the dining room tonight, okay?" Lizzie shrugged. "Sure." She handed Maggie's leash to Mr. Baker and followed Mom and Dad down the hall with the scouts. "So, if everything's set?" Mr. Baker asked Charles in a low voice as they walked with the animals towards the rec room. Charles nodded. "All set." "Excellent." Mr. Baker pushed open the door to the rec room, and Beverly came over to rescue the welcome the animals. "You won't have so many visitors tonight, Beb," Mr. Baker said. "At least not once when the showcase gets going." Oh, gee, my eyes streamed up a bit. Fine with me. Beverly answered. Maggie, Max, and I have some catching up to do anyways. Charles gave the puppy and kitten each a quick pat, then followed Mr. Baker into the dining room. Sammy was waiting for them by the mashed potato station. Ready to tell yet? He asked as Charles took his place. Charles shook his head and pretended to sip his lips. Dinner went by at a board, and before he knew it, Charles was helping to move tables aside and set up chairs. In a few minutes, the chairs had been converted into a theater, with rows of chairs placed on a platform where the performers would appear. Oh, geez, leaky eyes. Charles soon felt his hands getting sweaty. He gulped all too soon. He would be up there on that platform, performing a whole bunch of whole people. He took a deep breath and tried to relax. After all, these people weren't strangers anymore. He's been serving him food for weeks now, and he's gotten to know most of the people at the nest pretty well, especially the kids. Before they let the audience come in, Mr. Baker stood up in front of all the volunteers and explained how the showcase would work. The performers would sit in the back row. He would introduce each one in turn, and they would come on stage and do their thing, then go sit back down. At the end of the evening, everyone would come up on stage together for one last bow. Are we ready? Mr. Baker asked. He went and opened the doors. The audience footed in, found their seats, and the showcase began. Sammy was third after the scout who sang Silent Night and a funny skit by Charles' mom and dad. Charles was impressed on how well his friend recited The Night Before Christmas. Sammy didn't even make one mistake, so Charles gave him a high five when he got back to his seat. Then they sat together and watched all the other volunteers perform. The audience loved everything. Then Charles saw Mr. Baker look at him and give him a secret wink. As Charles made his way to the front room, Mr. Baker disappeared and slipping out through the side door. For a second thought, Charles felt like sweating in front of everyone. His hands went all sweaty. His knees felt like jello. But then he looked down the audience and spotted Evan, who smiled and waved. Charles took a deep breath. Hi, everybody. Merry Christmas. I wrote a special little poem just for tonight. His voice was a little squeaky so he cleared his throat. So here it is, he began. 'Twas the night before Christmas, a time to be glad. But inside the nest, lots of people were sad. They lay awake wishing that Santa could say, Merry Christmas to all, Maggie and Max can stay. But what would happen? But as everyone could know, one pet was a handful, so how could they keep two? Mr. Baker's so busy with the nest in his care. Here, he can't handle one pet, much less have a pair. Danny loves dogs, but he doesn't have enough space, and he isn't allowed to keep pets in his place. Marina loves cats, but their fur brings on sneezing. How can she answer a phone if she's wheezing? Beverly's got all the kids in the case. The sink and the noise with two animals there. But wait, look outside. Can you hear Santa's call? He's bringing the nest, the best present of all. Distant Mr. Baker reappeared. in the doorway, but he was now dressed up like Santa in a red suit with a very obvious fake white beard. He walked down the aisle, leading Maggie on her bright red Christmas leash. Maggie carried in a red and striped knitted stocking in her mouth, and in the stocking was Max, whose bright eyes were looking all around. Donnie's broken into excited whispers and giggles. From the stage, Charles saw Evan's face lit up when he saw his favorite animal friends. Soon Mr. Baker was standing next to Charles. They soon smiled at each other. Now it was Mr. Baker's turn to finish the poem. He faced Donnie and began. I fought for and came up with a way for our dear Maggie and Max to come here and stay. 2 pets are a handful for one person, it's true. But with everyone's help, look at what we can do. Beverly, Danny, Miranda, and me will pitch in together and make it easy, you'll see. The kids can help. So each night and each day, Merry Christmas to all. Maggie and Max can stay. For a second, the whole room was quiet. Then the audience burst into cheers and applause. When suddenly Charles almost felt like he could have started crying, so he quickly knelt down and threw his arms around Maggie's big, fluffy neck. Charles could hardly believe he had gone into Mr. Baker to change his mind. It took him a lot of work to convince him, but Mr. Baker finally understood that if everyone pitched in, they could both take care of a puppy and a kitten. I think you two found a wonderful home, Charles whispered to Maggie and Max. Merry Christmas. Oh, shoot. The end. That was another great puppy place story. Speaking of which, another puppy place read-along. This happens to be next. What is it, you ask? It's Shadow, coming December 27th. So stay tuned.